This time last year, the Florida Keys were really reeling and dealing with Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma came in. It was a very powerful storm that packed a big punch. And a year later, people are still cleaning up. It took a lot of resources and a lot of people to help. And certainly thanks go out to everyone who helped. This week, you watch the news or look around and you see the remnants of Hurricane Florence. Hurricane Florence was also an incredibly powerful storm and has some lasting effects. People in North Carolina are really hurting. North Carolina, South Carolina. I got an email from one of our listeners, Tyler, who says, the flooding we're experiencing here in North Carolina and South Carolina is unreal. It's something I've never seen before. It feels like a really bad dream. Anyway, he goes on to tell me about his family, everybody being flooded, everyone losing their homes, losing farms, and losing all kinds of property. So just want to put it out there that if you can help North Carolina or South Carolina by donating to the Red Cross or donating your services or doing kind of the same thing that happened last year when people really came together to get supplies, other things to the Florida Keys, man, if nothing else, give these people in North Carolina your positive thoughts and prayers. And if you can, donate to the Red Cross. This episode is brought to you by Waypoint TV. Waypoint TV is the home to over 70 producers of their best outdoor content. Some of the best stuff available anywhere is available for free on Waypoint TV. Go to waypointtv.com and find out how you can download it on the device you like. And you know what? If you are overwhelmed with the amount of content there, just click the live feed and they'll shuffle through some cool shows for you. You might find some new shows that you haven't ever seen before. I know I did. That's Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. I also want to tell you about some of the things we've got going on here at the podcast and some of the things that we're doing. We have put together a new website. That is tomrowlandpodcast.com, TOMROWLANDPODCAST.com. And this podcast website is basically the home to everything related to the podcast, the show notes, the pictures and stuff on the guests and all kinds of stuff. And it'll continue to grow. But one thing that I put there that just didn't seem to fit anywhere else on the Saltwater Experience site or anywhere else was the book club. And over the years, I have started to become much more of an avid and voracious reader. And really, with the advent of how easy it is now to get an audio book and all the driving that I do, I find myself reading or listening to a lot of books. And with my friends, I have created a little book club. We get together about every 2 weeks. We just have breakfast and talk about these books. If you would like to be a part of that group virtually, it's as simple as going to tomrowlandpodcast.com. The top of the book on the top of the list is the one that we're reading right now or have read most recently, and you go on down. Some of the best books ever written are on that list, and they've been suggested to me by these podcast guests that we have. They've been suggested to me by other leaders. I've gotten a lot out of them, and you will too. So go to tomrowlandpodcast.com, look at the book club, and see if you have any of those books that you'd like to read or you'd like to join us in reading them. And if you buy through the website, you can support the podcast. Probably about 50 cents of what you buy goes back to the podcast, and every little bit helps. All right. Last but not least, you can follow me, my personal Instagram account at Tom_Rowland, ROWLAND. That's my personal Instagram. That's pretty much the only social media platform that I'm paying much attention to personally. So if you'd like to follow that, you can I usually take pictures of the guests we're doing podcasts with and put it up there long before they become public. So if you want to get a sneak peek or figure out what we're doing as far as fishing or fitness or podcasting or anything, whatever, go there. That's where you go.
We were coming back from Europe, and we were really having a good time. We picked up a new car in Paris, and we were going to go visit some relatives in Sweden. It was a rainy day, coming down a hill in Brussels, Belgium, had a head-on collision with the big Mercedes, killed Mom and Dad. And I'm in the car. And so after all the funerals and all the things, I go back to Santee. I was kind of busted up. I had a busted shoulder and a busted ribs and stuff like that. And so I became a guide, just kind of recuperating with Santee Cooper for a number of years. And the whole time I'm thinking, daggone, my parents never saw me as any kind of success. I don't know. I have to do something worthwhile. Maybe it'll prove them wrong because, they can't see that I'm any success at all. So anyway, Ray Scott called. Ray Scott was the president of BASS. Hi, Roland Martin here, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
That was Roland Martin, and the rest is history. Welcome to the podcast today, guys. I'm super excited to bring you a true icon of fishing. Roland Martin is a name synonymous with bass fishing, and he does not disappoint. I got to know Roland on a trip that I was doing for Bass Pro Shops at their spring classics. They send you around to about 3 or 4 different stores over the course of a weekend, and I found myself traveling with Roland for all 3 days. And from the moment we got in the car till the moment we finished up, he told stories. And I knew right away that when I started this podcast, I was going to create a little list of some of the most colorful, interesting characters, entertaining people that I knew of in the fishing industry. And he was right up there at the top of the list. So I am really, really excited to bring this podcast to you. And, I have to thank Roland. This is the kind of guy he is. He was about 2 hours away from me, and he was going in the other direction. And he made time in his schedule to travel 2 hours out of the way to come and sit down and talk on this podcast. So, it would have been really, really easy for him to just go on his way, but he didn't. He did that for us, and I really appreciate it because this interview is a favorite for sure. He's got a lot of stories, and I learned a lot about Roland Martin that I had no idea how he started. I had no idea about things that happened in his life and things that influenced him throughout his life, even to today. And he goes into deep detail on a lot of that, and it didn't disappoint. I really liked it, and I'm excited to bring you an interview with pro bass icon Roland Martin. All right, I'm sitting here with Roland Martin. Roland Martin is a man that probably needs no introduction to this audience. I will try. He has won over $1 million in BASS tournaments. He continues to fish them. In fact, today he drove 2 hours out of his way to come here and talk to us on this show as he's moving from place to place doing other sponsor things. But he's a man that is one of the true pioneers of the sport, a true icon of the sport, and he's continued on that path with his TV show, with the tournament fishing, with so many other things. And when I first started this, I thought about you as I made a little list.
Okay.
I put Bill Dance on it. Yeah. I put you on it. I put several other people on it because I was really curious about how it all started for you. But one of the things that I'm really curious, because I've been fortunate enough to basically just follow along a path that you guys blazed. The television sponsorship road, where you have a fishing television show on TV, you're selling product through all different types of entertainment. And you guys, you and Bill Dance and Jerry McInnes and Jimmy Houston and on down the line, really pioneered that. But I know that it didn't.
It wasn't an overnight success, no. It was kind of a slow start. In fact, my parents were professionals. My mother was a school teacher, and my father was a head of doctorate in engineering and a professional engineer. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I fished was completely against the grain. And the fact that when I was in college, my dad wanted me to become a engineer, and I kind of failed out of engineering, got into like biological sciences and stuff, but I finally struggled after a lot of fishing trips. I struggled through college, but I managed to make it several extra years, but I finally got an education of some sort. But my parents had already figured that I was just going to be a loser because I was a fisherman, and they thought I was wasting so much of my time.
Yeah.
And so they just try to talk me into other things. The fact that I like to fish, I grew up in Maryland, and they were just always on me, and they didn't want me to really fish much. I mean, not that I just went every minute, and I'd forsake my studies, and I'd have a lot of problems with that. So I was the black sheep of the family.
How many in your family? What was the structure?
I have a brother that was pretty successful, and my sister was a valedictorian of her class, and I just said I struggled through school like I told you, and so I didn't know what to do. Interesting thing happened. I kind of proved myself because I went into the military. I volunteered for the draft.
Okay.
And so I'd taken 2 years of ROTC because it was mandatory back in the 60s. I had a little bit of ROTC background. And as I got into the Army and I was just a private, I had a boat and I had it tied it to the barracks there in the area. And this one Colonel Gravel that ran the communication school, he kept wanting, whose boat is that? Because he liked to fish. Well, anyway, he introduced himself one day to me, and he was the colonel of the whole brigade, of the whole training brigade. And so I made a deal, and I said, "Well, Colonel, I'll take you fishing. I'll take you out to Santee Cooper, and we'll catch some big bass." And he said, "Okay, private." I was a private at the time. And so here we get out there on about the second or third fishing trip. Colonel Gravel said, "Have you ever thought about OCS? We're going to, advanced military training and getting a commission in the military." I said, "No, not really." I said, "I took some ROTC in college, but I don't know. I'm not really interested." Well, he says, "I'm the review board chairman, and I'm looking for candidates, to go to the OCS academy, so the different places." And I said, "Oh, I'd kind of like artillery." So he put me on hold. He said, "Okay, come in and have a review." And I went in and I passed the test. He said, "Okay, you're a good candidate for OCS. We want to send you to Fort Sill and to become artillery." Well, that didn't open up. Finally, Benning opened up. So I went to Fort Benning, got a commission. 6 months of hard work. I'm telling you, it was the neatest thing in the world because they want you to quit the whole time that you're going to school. Yeah. They say, "You can quit in a minute, just have to keep going." And so I was great at that. My map training was so good because when I was helping my dad in some of the engineering survey work, I could take a topo map, and read all the contours, know where the lakes were going and all the ridges and bridges and house foundations. And I could take an Army map and do the same thing. And I could avoid all the perils of going through cross-country stuff because I could read a contour map.
Wow.
Big time. And so I would just traverse all around everywhere. So in all the training that I had at Benning, I just really did well. And so when I got my commission, Colonel Gravel got me back to Fort Jackson, and I'd set a record in basic training at Jackson and also set a record at OCS for rifle marksmanship. I'd set a brigade record. He ran the rifle ranges as well. He said, "I want you as a rifle range officer." So we'd fish all the time. And every Friday he'd come and get me, and we'd go to Santee, and we'd just have the biggest time. And I was kind of a guide for some of the military guys. And so my father kept saying, "Son, what are you going to do after the military?" And I said, "I don't know, Dad. I think I'm going to go to Vietnam, and I want to become airborne special forces ranger, and I want to do all these wonderful things to become an Army hero." He said, "Son," he says, "you're going to get killed." He says, "You need to come to Brazil. I got a job working for AID, the Alliance for International Development under President Kennedy." Mm-hmm. Kennedy was dead by that time. But anyway, he'd set up these programs where Dad, an engineer, was now working in Brazil, working for the dams and reservoir systems in Brazil. He didn't fish. He didn't get me into fishing. And he said, "Come on down to Brazil." He said, "I got you a job teaching algebra and general science and stuff in Brazil. And you don't have to go to Vietnam." "No, I want to go to Vietnam. I want to become a big hero." No, son, it's better if I get you this teaching job in Brazil." So at the last minute, I got a teaching job in Brazil. It was really cool. And we got along really good that year. I worked down there, and we saw eye to eye for the first time in our whole life. We'd never been real close, as a father and a son. And now I could see him as an adult. He could see me as an adult and somewhat of a success. I've been that black sheep all these years. And so he said, "Well, okay, son. Okay, you're doing better than I thought." And so we were coming back from Europe, and we were really having a good time. We picked up a new car in Paris, and we were going to go visit some relatives in Sweden. It was a rainy day, coming down a hill in Brussels, Belgium, had a head-on collision with the big Mercedes, killed Mom and Dad.
Oh.
And I'm in the car. And so after all the funerals and all the things, I go back to Santee. I was kind of busted up. I had a busted shoulder and a busted ribs and stuff like that. And so I became a guide, just kind of recuperating with Santee Cooper for a number of years. And the whole time I'm thinking, daggone, my parents never saw me as any kind of success. I don't know. I have to do something worthwhile. Maybe it'll prove them wrong because, they can't see that I'm any success at all. So anyway, Ray Scott called. Ray Scott was the president of BASS. And Ray said, have you heard of my tournament trails? Have you heard of all the great things that are happening in the tournament trails? I said, no, Ray. I said, I don't want to do tournaments. I'm down here at Santee Cooper, and I'm catching big 8 and 10-pound bass, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to fool with your tournaments. You don't catch those kind of fish in the tournaments. He says, no, we don't specialize in trophy fish. We just specialize in a lot of good fish. I said, no, I don't want to do that. So for forever, he'd call. Finally, in 1970, I said, okay, I'll go to the first tournament. I'll just go there. And I started doing really well. I came in second in the first one, and I won the second one, and I came in second in the third one. And I just really, like a meteor, just really took over the trail. And about that time, Ray said, we're going to organize a membership drive for bass. There were 17,000 members, and we're going to go on a Bluebird bus. We're going to do a seminar circuit trail all from Connecticut to California. We're going to go to all these cities, Dallas, and we're going to put on big seminars. Roland, you can handle the projector and the screen and do a deal on reading the depth finders. And then Bill Dance, you can do something. And then John Powell, you can talk about shallow water fishing. I'll talk about worm fishing, and we'll put on a big show and we'll try to get members for the Bass Angler Sportsman Society. So I worked for Ray for a whole year. I'm starting to fish tournaments, and I'm starting to make money. I made money in Brazil. I made money when my parents had their insurance that I got from their death. I made money fishing the trail. So now I got $30,000 or $40,000. And it's 1972 or 3, and I'm finally married now. And I'm figuring, I'll start television. And I had like $35,000 to spend. And I bought some cameras and I bought some stuff because I'd been doing television work and I've been fooling around. I lost my butt. I lost everything I had. And then I'd win another tournament and I'd maybe get another camera and I'd say, I'm going to do it one more year maybe. And I'm struggling. I can't make any success. And the whole time I'm thinking about my parents. The whole time I'm thinking, I wish they could see me. I'm struggling to get ahead. I'm just about ahead. And I'm not quite ahead. I'm maybe going to get into television. I'm doing good on the tournament trail. I'm a half a success. Boy, I wish they could see me as a success. But they didn't. They couldn't. But it was a motivation for me to try to prove to them, even though they couldn't see it. So anyway, Ray set the stage for me and said, this is a springboard opportunity, winning these tournaments and become a big deal. And finally, you got television. You can go to the AFTMA show, which is now the ICAST show, and you get credibility. You can maybe get good sponsors, and you can get ahead. And sure enough, about the third year or fourth year of television, I started kind of breaking even a little bit. We started with film work. Film. It was really tough.
Yeah, and then, linear editing. And were you editing
it was
your
terrible.
own things?
I did all that crazy editing. Oh, it was awful. And then we had single tube videotape with the old cassette. All that stupid stuff. And so then we went to Betacam. And finally, we're kind of getting ahead. And I started working with Bill Dance. We had a Cinesports group over in Little Rock, and then we went and that worked out pretty good. And then I went with Orlando Wilson right after that, and Orlando and I had the big deal at AT Communications up in Atlanta.
Okay,
we worked together as partners and had some big contracts. And then the guys from TNN came along.
Yes, David
Hall from TNN came down. They had fished with me at Okeechobee. By that time, I'd set my marina up at Lake Okeechobee, and I had quite a great destination. And so TNN people would come down to fish, and they fell in love with my television, and they decided to hire Orlando and I, They gave us a great big giant contract, like a $250,000 contract just for performance. This was back when we were doing 1 million households a week.
Yes.
If you remember, television back in the late 80s and early 90s was bigger than it is now.
Way bigger.
Way bigger. And we'd have 1 million households. And now we're making big money. I'd make another $100,000 on endorsements, and I'd make another $100,000 winning tournaments. And man, I was on top of the world back in the 90s. I mean, this looked like really a big deal. Well, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I wish my parents could see I'm finally a success, you know. And I, at that point, I really was. Television was so big that when I had kind of a faltering marriage, the first marriage to Marianne, my son Scott's mother, I figured, well, television was worth so much because it's going so big that I'll give her the marina and I'll take the television come the divorce.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bad choice. It was a $7 million marina, and the television was going downhill. But I'm happy with it, you know. And we've made television work. Well, what we're doing now, we're cutting corners on television. And television is actually profitable. Yeah. You know, we're not spending as much in production, and we're another thing we're doing, and I know you do it with destinations. We try to have people that want us to come to a spot to help pay for the cost and get some Chamber of Commerce money and stuff, you know, those kind of things. So that helps a lot. So we've cut expenses, and we try to get destination money as well. So television is profitable from that standpoint if you just cut corners.
How long have you been on television?
I've been on television 43 years.
43 years.
43 years. I started full-time in 74.
So when you got started, who were you looking at as somebody that was doing something that you thought maybe?
Bill's always been my hero, Bill Dance.
Yeah.
He had started on the tournament trail a couple of years before I did, and he had won the first 3 or 4 or 5 tournaments as leading money winner in most tournaments. And so by the time I started, after 3 or 4 years, I kind of caught up with Bill. But he had started television 3 or 4 years ahead of me, and I'd worked with Bill on doing some of the shows. So he had preceded me, and he was my hero. So, and he still is.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, he's just, you know, a great guy, and he's so entertaining.
Yeah,
Bill
he
is just, and so is Jimmy. In fact, we're together as partners now.
Yeah, and the
three
legends.
3 legends. We have Bill Dance and Jimmy Houston and myself, and we do little things. We hit the booyah boat cleaners, and we got some tackle box stuff, and we have the gloves, and I don't know, little things. But anyway, we're trying to make that work, and that's kind of all right. You know, it's not bad. But no, Bill's been a great one, and of course I work with Jimmy just even more.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
now?
we
Today
do a lot of hunting together, and we were going to go elk hunting last week, and we got all messed up and didn't go. We still might go in October.
Well, that you were telling me that that was kind of an invitation that you got kind of on the fly, and I was telling you that my son is starting his elk guiding career this year, and he's been on 2 hunts. And he was an apprentice guide on the first hunt and an apprentice guide on the second hunt. And then the following week, next week, he's going to be all by himself as the full guide. But
where is it? What
he's in outside of Big Sky, Montana at Sage Peak Outfitters. They hunt the Lee Metcalf Wilderness. And they got one on the first hunt, and they got one on the second hunt.
Wow.
All bow hunting.
Bow hunting.
Yeah, so he's just on top of it. I mean, talk about somebody, like when you're talking about in the 90s, how you're on top of the world, that just reminded me of him, and it reminded me, you know, when I first started guiding too, so you're just like...
I love Montana. My biggest deer I've ever killed was Montana.
Yeah.
I just love it, Montana.
You do all kinds of stuff outside of fishing,
I'm
right?
a better fisherman, and that's my biggest thing is... You know, people ask me all the time, what's the favorite thing I used to do? Well, back years ago, and we were talking about it a little bit ago, I used to be fly rod tarpon fishing. Used to be my number one thing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over that a little bit. I mean, I built my own fly reels. I tie my own flies. I did all that stuff. I did all that stuff. I've caught hundreds and hundreds of fly rod tarpon. So I've done tournaments. I've done all this stuff like that. But I'm a little burned out over it. I don't know why. I just am.
Well, you can spend a lot of time doing anything, and I think, you know, and then you find something else that's interesting to you. I know the first time that I ever really had an extended period of time to talk to you, I was with Bass Pro, or still am, and they would do the spring classics. And what they do for the Spring Classics is they send you a schedule of a couple of different cities that you're scheduled to be in. And so I show up at the hotel, and I'm scheduled to go to, I think it was Mobile, and then the next spot over, and then ending up in Louisiana. And I don't know who else is going with me or anything, but I walk down, and there you are sitting at breakfast that morning. And I thought, that's strange. Now, why would Roland Martin be here if he wasn't going on this same thing that I'm going on? And I just went down there and introduced myself. I said, my name's Tom Rowland, and I think that we might be going to the same places. And you said, no kidding, sit down. We started talking, and you said, you're going here and here and here. And I said, well, why don't we just ride together? And you said, okay, great, that's fine. So we rode together. And from the moment we left, you told stories. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this podcast so badly, because you're a very good storyteller, like a really good storyteller. And you got a lot of stories.
I think of all the crazy ones. I entertained these guys that I stayed with up there at Douglas Lake. We really had a good time talking about stories.
That's where you just came from?
Yeah, we just came from Douglas Lake, and I kind of fell on my butt a little bit. I had a real great practice, and I had some wonderful times catching fish before the tournament started. And then I caught limit after limit in the tournament, but they were small. Yeah. I didn't do very good.
Well, that's the way tournament fishing is, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've had your television show on for 47 years, but you've been fishing tournaments quite a few years longer than
Actually, I've been fishing tournaments since 1970. Yeah.
And in that time, you have seen some massive changes in the form of the way people fish, the boats, the electronics, the engines. I mean, how do you sum up the changes that you've seen in bass fishing since you started?
I think a lot of it came through, well, not only the guides in the Florida Keys, which set standards as well, but the tournament trail people have set standards. And, anytime that you put money on the line, whether it's a guide that's trying to excel or whether it's a tournament guy that makes his living being a professional fisherman, the success on the tournament trail set the standards in the tackle industry. All the new lures, all the new tackle. It's just phenomenal. The electronics are just out of sight.
I know.
Golly, that Panoptics and be able to see fish swimming around.
You can see it's incredible. And now you can see the side to the front to the back.
I know.
And in real time. I mean, I don't know how it can get a lot better. But, luckily, I guess we're getting a lot of that technology from the military.
Sure.
And they're bringing that over to the consumer, just like GPS technology. I mean, that was something that wasn't even around, like when you were having your big days in the 90s, in the early 90s.
Right.
That was pre-GPS.
Well, it was just before I started television. Ray Scott had taught me into fishing all the tournaments. My first real job was with Lowrance Electronics.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had done was I'd patented a water clarity meter. And I'd written articles about how important water clarity was. And I had a way to measure it.
And what was that called? Was that the color selector?
No, it was a different deal.
Do you remember that thing?
Yeah, that was Dr. Hall, Dr. Lauren Hill's deal. And
I remember my grandfather had one of those.
Yeah,
he swore by it. I mean,
actually, the people I'm going to film with tonight, they're the Spike It people.
Okay,
they bought the color selector.
Okay,
they have that system.
Yeah,
so that's one of my advertisers now.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So what was your water clarity meter?
Well, it was something that never did work out. It was a photocell like you'd have in a camera, and it shone a light. When I turned the intensity of the light up, okay, you take light, you turn it on, and you turn it with no water in this tube, and the photocell's here. So you turn the light up, and so that the little light meter would read 100%.
So you're getting a sample of the lake water?
Well, first I take air.
Okay.
And when the air is 100% translucent, in other words, you can see through the air, you adjust your meter to 100.
Okay.
Now you immerse that into the water, and it's not going to be 100 anymore because the water obscures the light.
Right.
So the muddier the water, the more the light's obscured. So down to where it's really muddy, that's like zero. Like zero clarity is just like the most muddy water you could ever imagine. then that's muddy. So it was a very common thing. You just pull it out of the water, you adjust it to 0, put it in the water, it would read 40% or 30% or 80% or what that would be the clarity of the water.
And then, so what would you do with that information?
Then I'd say if it was 90% clear, that means you could see pretty well. Well, I'd like more natural bait. You're matching the hatch, shad-colored stuff that, look very similar to the
smaller line.
Yeah, smaller line. And then the other recommendation, the bottom of the scale is only reading 20 or 30%. It's really dingy. You want chartreuse. You want big flashy things. You want something that has noise and attraction.
Yeah.
Rather than a subtle thing.
Yeah. And so that didn't work on the open market, but was it working for you in the tournaments and stuff?
Look, Carl Lawrence, when he was alive at the time, he saw this thing. He says, man, we can make $1 million selling these color selectors. Why don't you come to work for Lawrence Electronics and we'll make these color selectors and we'll just do really good. Well, it never got off the ground. It just didn't happen. It just, I don't know. I was all ready for it. I guess people didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. It just didn't pan out. But I got a good job out of it.
Yeah. Well, there's always things that seem like a really good deal, but they don't make it. Over the years, I've seen all kinds of wacky things. People, especially now with social media, I get messages all the time. Hey, would you try this product if I sent it to you? And some of them are interesting, but then
sign this non-disclosure deal.
These people they're not even to that point. It's like I got this bait. It's revolutionary. It's got a battery in it. It does this or that, and it's interesting, but it's hard. You go to ICAST show and you look at all these tiny little booths and all of these ideas that people have.
I see that they're going to go broke because I can see they have one little product. And they're thinking they're going to make $1 million on it.
Right.
And none of those people are ever back another year. That's the only shot they've ever made.
Yeah.
And
but it's a very significant shot because they've made a prototype. They've gotten some stock. They've got all this stuff.
Where the success does come, if they have that single product that is a success when they sell it to some other big company.
Right.
That's the deal.
Yeah. But some of them really work. Like Z-Man came out with that chatterbait. And
cool?
it was different, and then people started winning with it, and it does work.
Yes, I use it every day. I mean, I used it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean that has become like a standard thing, and all. I don't know. It's funny to see the trends that go into all the fishing, and I'm sure over the years you've seen some completely wacky things in both freshwater and saltwater, but some of them are just silly. Right. And then some of them actually really, really work.
Sure.
But that's when you start, like, without the tournaments or without the guide industry and the money on the line, that's where the innovation, in my opinion, kind of stops. Like, if you're not after that 1% advantage, like if everybody's just going out there to have fun and just fish, who cares really if you catch 49 fish and your buddy catches 50? Right, sure. I mean, you both had a great day, and both of you were working really hard at it. But when you catch 50 fish every single day that you go out, and everybody else is catching 49 to 20, all of a sudden your percentage of success is way better than everyone else's. And if and out of those 50 fish. Or just in a bass tournament, you're catching 5 fish that are all, on average a pound heavier than everyone else's, and you're consistently doing that. Right. All of a sudden, you're winning the money, and other people aren't, and people want to know what it is that you're doing, and that's where I see a lot of innovation coming, and it's like in the tournaments or even in the guide world, but more so in the tournaments. If you can just be just a tiny bit more successful over time, that's a lot more successful.
My son Scott is that personified because what he's doing, and he's seen the efficiency of and failure of everything. But like with the electronics, for example, his big deal now is this Panoptics. And he thinks by using his electronics and just spotting a few extra fish a day and just maybe getting 1 or 2 to commit, just 1 or 2 extra fish, that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, of course, how many tournaments is he fishing a year?
Well, he's consistently winning. He was second in the year last year for the Angler of the Year for the FLW, and he's won 6 of the big tournaments that they've had. So he's probably their most successful fisherman.
Yeah,
he believes in efficiency. It's all just getting that one extra fish.
Right. And that's really what it's about, or landing that one extra fish. Like that one didn't get off. And that's what we were always interested in the redfish tournaments, is making sure that you're finishing the deal. It's one thing to get the bite. It's another thing to get it up and go, ooh, that's a really nice one. It's another thing to get it in the boat and actually measure it, and it's an eighth of an inch too big or an eighth of an inch too small. But you start to refine your process to where it's the right hook, and you don't use this hook anymore because you lost 4 fish last year, and now you've gotten this, and you don't lose fish anymore. But it's that refinement of the process, and just getting just a tiny bit of a percentage better. Right. And then over time, that's a lot better. That's like what you're talking about with Scott. He's trying to find one more fish a day. One more fish a day over 50 days, 100 days, 200 days. Right. That's a lot better.
It's really close, because when you start talking about that one extra fish, all I would have needed to have done really well in this last tournament, was one halfway decent fish. Now, the first day I had about 5-pounder come rushing out at my topwater plug, and he didn't take it. I don't know why. I just saw him at the last minute. I kind of twitched it a funny way, and he just turned off of it. That would have put me in the money right there, that one fish. And he came an inch from getting caught. So I screwed up a little bit. Yeah. I wasn't 100% efficient,
Yeah.
And it cost me, say, $1,000.
Yeah.
Just that one fish.
Yeah.
Cost me $1,000.
So what is it that you think, like when you tell a story like that, I see your eyes light up and you get really excited about that efficiency and missing that one fish. What is it that you think has kept you so interested in fishing for as long as you've been in it?
Well, we're all competitive in nature. I mean, I think I am competitive. I just enjoy. I've retired like 3 times. And I'd retire and I'd sit around, I'd cut the grass, and I'd tie flies, and I'd say, I'm getting bored.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I'm going to have to go fish some more tournaments. And the first time I retired was in 92, I think, and I came back on the tournament trail, and I went on to win the Connecticut River tournament with the jet boat thing. And
okay.
That
What's
was
the
a big
jet
deal.
Boat thing?
Well, at the time, they didn't have restrictions on what type of boats.
Okay.
And so I'd gone to the Connecticut River early to kind of check it out. And this guy showed me some smallmouth fishing way above these rapids that you couldn't get a boat, couldn't get up there. And I said, well, how can I get a boat up there? He said, you can't get a boat up here unless it's a jet boat. I got a jet boat. I won the tournament.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing. There ended up being about 5 or 6 Rowland rules. One of them was a jet boat. The other thing was polling platforms on the front. Well, not the polling platform, but you know how you have a raised front deck?
Yes.
In your bonefish skiff?
Absolutely.
To be able to stand up high to see the bonefish? I got one because I bonefish. I'm tarpon fish. And so I put a regular front deck platform on my bass boat. And I went to Okeechobee back in the late 90s, won a big tournament. Oh, Roland, that's a disadvantage. Nobody else has a raised platform in the front of the boat. We'll have to make that illegal. So that was the second thing.
But they could have.
They could have.
And I always heard that. I always heard
that was the reason, because I won the tournament.
I asked Shaw Grigsby that. I said, well, what about just getting a little elevation? He said, no, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Can't do that.
And I thought, okay, well. And then I find it interesting that one tournament allows nets and the other tournament does not allow nets.
I can't. You know why? Because Jerry McInnes, bless his heart, I love Jerry to death. He likes to film, and he likes the drama of filming. And he likes the drama of people struggling, possibly getting hooked, possibly losing the fish at the boat, all that drama. He likes that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like that. I don't like that drama.
Yeah,
I want to catch the fish.
Right. And the landing net makes a big difference. Well, what are the other Rowland rules? You got
let's see.
There was raised platforms.
There was the practice rule. I remember back when I won one of the early tournaments back in the early 70s. Ray Scott, we used to have a little banquet night and a presentation of awards. And he said, well, Roland, what's the key to your success for winning this tournament? Well, at the time, they didn't have a cutoff. And I just came in about a week or so early because I I don't know, spent like 10 days.
Yeah.
Getting ready for it. And I had all these fish found everywhere in the whole world. And I said, well, Ray, I can come in a whole week ahead of time because I'm just kind of have my own schedule to work with. And having those 10 extra days really helps. I know where every fish is in the lake. And I said, okay, we're going to have rules for cutoff.
Yeah.
3 days practice. That's kind of been the rule for the last 40 years.
What do you think about that? Like,
there's a new format now. There's a new tournament circuit that I might compete in. It's called the Major League Fishing Circuit. Yeah. And they're not doing any pre-fishing in that deal. They take you in cold like we used to do for the Classic. Remember years ago when we've had the early Classics, they'd just fly us in, say, here's a mystery lake. Just go figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what Major League Fishing is doing now on their format. If they expand the tournament trail, like they possibly get me in because Bass Pro Shops sponsored, Johnny Morris wants me to fish them. So he's asked me to fish them if I can work it out. But anyway, so Major League Fishing's format is just go in a lake cold, no practice, go catch them now.
That's good. Then nobody has an advantage, right?
So,
I mean,
that's kind of their format.
Unless it's a lake similar to one that you spend a lot of time on.
But for me, the practice is fun.
Yeah.
I love to go out and try to figure things out because I try to eliminate. I wrote a book years ago, Roland Martin's 101 Bass Catching Secrets. It's all about patterns, 101 patterns.
Yeah.
So I have 101 patterns to go try if I have enough time to try them all.
Yeah.
So practice is a big time for me.
Yeah.
I love practice.
Well, when we would fish the redfish tournaments, there was no rules on practice. And so everybody would go there as much time as they could. And if you felt like, this is a tournament that I feel like I can win, so I'm going to go and spend my time here. Well, you still got to pay the mortgage and you still got to pay your bills and everything. And you're not getting paid when you're pre-fishing. So you're putting a lot of time into that one. That's time that you're not putting into these others, right? So I always thought, if you just allow people to go practice as much as they want to, why not? Like, there's only so many days. And if they're practicing a whole bunch on that one, then they're not practicing a whole bunch for this other one, unless the schedule is laid out to where each tournament is a month apart from one another or something. And some people would just go camp out and try to become a professional. But it elevates the sport and it elevates the competition when people are that dialed in.
Another thing that I enjoy about, say, tarpon fishing, say, red fishing, say, bass fishing, is that I'd come down to the Keys and I'd say, Tom, hey, let's go red fishing. Tell me what's going on. What's the good lures? And so we're having a conversation. And now when I go practicing for a tournament, if the rules allow me, I'm making all my friends.
Sure.
I'm calling all my friends. Hey, what's going on? Or what's the current deal? Well, so many of these tournaments now are going the other direction. They're saying there's no information rule. Well, that kind of ruins it because now you and I are good buddies. I enjoy talking to you about fishing. I can't talk to you about fishing. I can't talk to Tom Rowland because he's liable to tell me a secret deal that would help me win the tournament. Well, why not? That's fun. That's what the fun of being friends and talking fishing, and that's what it's all about. You go down to the tackle shop, everybody has a big time telling stories. Yeah. You can't do that anymore. So much of the tournament trail and tournament talk is on restricted basis, and you can't even look at the internet. You can't even talk to anybody about fishing. You can't get any information from anybody. Well, in a way, that kind of spoils the fun of fishing.
And also, and I agree with that it spoils the fun of it a little bit, but I get where they're trying to go. They're trying to make it a completely level playing field. Let's see who the best angler is going in with no information about this place, who can win. But what that does, in my opinion, is it creates so many rules and so many opportunities for someone to inadvertently break those rules. Not like trying to, but somebody says, while you're just after you close the gas cap on your truck and you're about to close the door, and somebody says, "Don't forget chartreuse is the color," and you're like,
you know what? People come up to me all the time because they recognize me as a top guy, so they'll say, "Roland, I got to tell you about these big bass on Brown's Point. You go out on the end of Brown's Point in 7 feet of water and throw a chartreuse spinnerbait."
Right.
And like, after they've said that, I'll say kind of slowly, "Well, sir, the rules prevent me from getting any information." Of course, they've already told me the information.
Right.
I mean, I didn't
And
have
you
anything
didn't solicit the information.
I didn't solicit the information. I wasn't looking for the information. They just came up and told me about
Right.
Brown's Point and the chartreuse spin rate. And the first thing I said was, I can't get any information, but they've given me the information.
I know. So there's an opportunity to where
I mean,
if you were
it's
to
crazy,
win that,
but I didn't break any rules.
Right. But if you were to win that tournament on Brown's Point, because for whatever reason you found yourself there and you didn't even know it was called Brown's Point, and there it is, you're catching the fish there, and the guy says, "Hey, I told him about that spot." Well, and then it gives somebody an opportunity to get in trouble.
Yeah, it is, and so I don't spend much time listening to him. I tell him pretty quick. I say, I can't solicit it. I can't, and I'll avoid Brown's Point.
Yeah,
I mean, I really will.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll try to.
Yeah.
But if you've never been on the lake before, I mean, you could happen to
stumble
be
on
just
Brown's Point.
fishing along.
There's Brown's Point. Okay, might as well.
Yeah. Well, the Keys tournaments would do the same thing with rules that if somebody wins, they would make a rule against it. I remember when somebody won a tournament, they caught a whole bunch of redfish in a really shallow boat, and then they went and did bone fishing in a deeper boat, and then as soon as they did that, then the rule is you got to fish out of one boat.
Out of one boat.
Yeah. But they always make those rules. I don't know what I think about them. I think in my opinion, the more rules you have, the more opportunity there is for someone to inadvertently break the rules, which causes controversy, and the controversy is not good for the tournament.
Right.
People get upset. And when people are getting upset, it creates an environment that's not pleasant to be in. So whenever there were a couple tournaments that I was a part of creating in the Florida Keys, and my 2 cents always was, look, just make the rules very straightforward, very black and white, and have as few rules as possible.
You did a lot of the IGFA stuff?
I did some of
Did
IGFA.
You met Dr. Mike Gallops, I guess?
Yeah.
He's my doctor.
Oh, I know. He is such a great fisherman.
He's a good fisherman.
Really great fisherman.
And, he makes hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's a concierge doctor.
Yeah, you were telling me that one time.
I pay him several $1,000s a year, and he takes care of me just really well. And I can call him right now. Hey, Doc, I got a boil on my hand. What should I do? Here's a prescription. I can be here.
Right.
So that's what concierge doctors do. They make a referral. And if I have a problem with my eyes, he'll send me to an eye doctor.
Right.
He refers. And anyway, it's just really a cool deal. But he's also the best fisherman around.
Yeah,
I know.
He is really, really good.
He's won 2 or 3 of the big IGFA tournaments.
He fished with my partner a lot.
He says this. He says, Roland, if it weren't for the fact that I'm making $500,000 a year as a doctor, I'd become a professional guide or just a professional fisherman.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'd want to do because I love fishing.
Yeah.
But he can't do that.
But that's why he moved his practice into that type of practice, right?
Yeah,
so
he has more time. He has actually Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. He can pretty well fish 3 days a week if he wants.
Yeah. Well, he is really good. He taught me a tremendous amount. Him and Robert Collins both together are a very dangerous combination of anglers, and they would fish with my partner, and they won a whole bunch of tournaments. But Mike, those guys taught me how to snook fish. And we were just doing a show just recently, and I was catching more than everybody else. That Rich was in the boat, and he wasn't catching them, and I was catching them. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm doing exactly what Mike Gallops and Robert Collins told me. I am fishing super slow. And he's like, slow? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, remember? He told us, he said, look at a snook. And I picked one up and I was talking about it. And I was like, look at their belly that's flat to the bottom for a reason, because they just lay there on the bottom and they don't move. And if you move that bait very, 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 very slowly, both of those guys told me that 90% of the people that fish for snook fish too fast. And so for whatever reason, that's the one piece of information that I locked away. And I'm like, okay, snook fishing, go slow. And then that's what I do now. If I go snook fishing, I'm slow. I'm very slow with everything. If I'm fishing a lure, I fish it very slow and just hop it along the bottom and give it plenty of time. Let it sit on the bottom. Then move it and let it sit on the bottom. That's what they taught me. And those guys catch a lot of big snook.
They do.
A lot of big snook.
They're really good.
So what about turkey hunting?
I love turkey hunting. One of the reasons why I'm going tomorrow down to visit the people at Spike It is that Don Rollins, who owns Spike It, also likes to woodwork. He does.
Oh, yeah? You were telling me you do that too.
And he has big lathes of wood. And so I make turkey calls as well. And then I make bowls, and I'm into lathing and woodwork, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And the turkey calls that I make, it's so satisfying, just like making a lure. I make all little lures too, the devil horses, and I make Zara spooks, and I make all that kind of stuff. So making lures, and then of course how much fun it's to tie a fly,
right?
Same kind of deal.
Yeah.
And but making a turkey call, that's a super deal.
You're making box calls,
box
mostly?
Calls, yeah, box calls.
Do you do any?
Well,
any...
I've done some slate calls, but box calls maybe.
Yeah. And how did you get into doing that? You just kind of are seeing
just
what's out there
it,
and thinking maybe I might be able to make it a little better.
Well, Rob Keck used to be the executive director for the Wild Turkey Federation years ago. He lives over in Edgefield, South Carolina. And he said, Roland, if you come to Nashville and help with our Wild Turkey Convention, do some good judging and just piddle around and sign autographs or do something, I don't know. He had me come. And he says, I'll get you a Neil Cost original box call. I said, what's that? He says, well, it's the best box call in the whole world. It's worth hundreds of dollars because Neil Cost is like the most famous guy. So he gave me one, and it is the best call. Well, I've had a couple of them since, and I met Neil Cost. And Neil Cost, he died about 10 or 15 years ago. But the thing is, he's recognized as being the number one master of all turkey calls ever, and his turkey calls are worth thousands of dollars. And I still have a couple of them. So I've duplicated them. Now, I've not built a turkey call as good as Neil's, but they look identical. You can't tell them apart. You take up Neil's call, and you take up my call. His really sounds good, and mine doesn't sound good.
Why do you think that is? What do you think?
Because
the difference?
every single piece of grain of every wood has a grain this way. If you turn the thing just a little bit, the grain kind of runs a different way, and then you turn the way. See how the grain would move?
Yes.
And so as you make that call, lining the grain is one big issue. The type of the wood, in other words, when you look at the block of wood itself, was it from the center of the log, and maybe the rings are closer together, or was it the outer cambium layer, and that's the lighter wood?
Right.
So there's all kind of density to consider, and all kind of strength, and there's just all kind of wood.
What type of wood do you make it out of?
Well, butternut and walnut, and some of the exotic woods. But wood is musical, just like a good violin.
Yeah.
It has a certain vibration and tone. And I don't know the difference yet because I just get all kind of wood. And I make all kind of turkey calls.
How many?
And I'll make like 10 perfect turkey calls, and out of those 10, one will really be good.
Yeah.
And then one will be kind of good, and
when you see that one that's really good, are you at this point in making them? Are you having a hard time determining what it is about that one that's a little bit different than this one?
Well, when you mill everything out, do everything by hand, it's how thick the walls are, and the choice of the wood itself, and the way you finish it, and maybe even the finish you put on. There's just everything's different, and it's just fun playing with it, and I just like doing it.
Yeah,
you know?
I've
gotten a little better.
My buddy sent me this. I just opened my computer to show you this. My buddy, if I can find it, he sent me this one thing about a turkey call, and it was a box call, but I'm having trouble finding it. I don't know what it was. Show up here. I don't do Facebook that much, but he sent it on Facebook. So anyway, I thought I could show you that. But so where all do you turkey hunt?
Well, for years I've gone, like for 35 straight years, I've gone to Missouri in the spring. I missed 1 year. Oh, and by the way, my really good turkey hunting buddy, who I've killed most of my turkeys with, he's also Johnny Morris's with Bass Pro Shop, his college roommate.
Oh,
his name is Ronnie Curry, and we fish together a lot. He just recently, 2 weeks ago, had a brain tumor, and I've been calling him every day.
Yeah.
And he's been feeling down in the dumps and feeling sorry for himself. And he said, "Oh, I'm paralyzed. My right leg is half paralyzed." And I said, "Well, your arms work?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm going to take you fishing. I'm going to send you a check. I'm going to send you an airplane ticket. I'm going to take you down to Lake Okeechobee, and I'm going to take you down to some of the swamps in Florida, and we're going to do some fishing." "Oh, I don't think I'll be able to fish. I've been so sick. I've had this operation." "Ronnie, I'm going to take you fishing. Get your spirits up." And so I called him today, and he's ready to go.
Oh, he is?
He's ready to go.
Good.
He said, "When are we going?"
That's
so
good.
That it's good to kind of give people incentives like that.
Absolutely.
Talk about things. But anyway, he's my number one turkey buddy. And he's got a couple farms, and we go, and we've hunted turkeys together for 35 years and killed between us probably more than we should have. I don't know how many turkeys, but we've really had a good time, and so he's my number one turkey hunting buddy.
What about the Everglades turkeys?
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. I went down this year with my lawyer. We spent a week in the Everglades, and we got 2. Finally, he got both of them. In this case, I didn't get one.
Yeah.
But it's tough. The only way I can really hunt the Everglades effectively is if I go in a whole month before with my swamp buggies, and I just do all this reconnoitering, particularly after a rain, and get on the roads where people aren't traveling, and find, after a rain, the tracks. I can find some areas sometime. That's one way. But just going in cold, the Everglades are too big, 800,000 acres. It's so easy to miss them.
Yeah.
And so we've had a couple bad years not having enough time to go.
That's an Osceola, right?
Osceola, yeah.
And how do you find them to be different than the other turkeys, the Easterns?
They're just fewer of them in a more spread out area. They're quieter birds. There's a lot of predators in the swamps of the Everglades, and the panthers and the bobcats getting after the ones that do gobble a lot. So they don't gobble a lot. They're harder to call, harder to deal with.
Yeah,
they're more wary.
Yeah, when you're talking about the Everglades, you're talking not the park, obviously, but on the outside.
Well, all through South Florida.
Yeah,
just about anywhere for that matter.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's some areas where the Osceolas and the Easterns are on the same property.
They say everything north of I-4, which is the interstate between Orlando and Tampa, they say everything north of that has kind of isn't the true Osceola. Everything south is the true Osceola. Huh. That's the kind of the dividing point.
Has there ever been? Is there any mixing of the breeds? Are there hybrids? I don't know. I don't know anything about those.
There's probably some hybrid deals. I know when I hunt Kansas, we get this turkey that they say, and the biologists say it's a hybrid between the Merriam and the Rio, and it has the regular Merriam turkey has a lot of white in the tail.
Yes,
and the Rio Grande turkey has kind of a buff, almost a tan.
Yeah.
Buff tail, but the cross has a little bit of both, so you can kind of see the difference.
Wow.
You can see kind of a cross there.
Seems like if you got a super turkey between two species, that it might be really hard to hunt. Like if it took the best senses of this one turkey and the best senses of the other, then you become a super turkey that knows you're there before you even get there.
The hardest turkeys to hunt are the turkeys that people are hunting a lot. When you get in an area that really good turkey hunters are hunting extensively, the turkeys that are left are the tough ones.
Yeah.
I mean, you get in an area that people aren't hunting as much, like you get parts of the Midwest. Well, you talking about Montana?
Yeah.
There's places there they don't really hunt turkeys much.
I know. And that's what my son was telling me.
They're kind of easy to hunt.
Easier. He
just
saw them
because they're not being hammered.
He just saw turkeys. They look like pets in this person's, on their farm. And he's like, are you keeping those? And he's like, no, they're just wild.
Right. Yeah. See, they haven't been hunted much, and they're not so wary.
Yeah, my turkeys are definitely wary, and they don't get hunted much, but they're smart. Easterns, they're really,
Easterns are
they're
smart.
really,
Easterns
really
are tough, and when you hunt any of those species of turkeys, they get real wary. Really do.
So at this point in your career, what gets you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
I'm a project person, Tom. I have a hard time sleeping at night because I'm thinking about that perfect turkey call I'm going to build tomorrow, or I'm thinking about that big 7-pound bass I'm going to catch on that new lure I made, or I'm thinking about some other project. And I have nothing but projects. And I'm in my 70s, and you'd think I'd have time to just relax and watch television. I can't do that. I'm piddling.
Yeah.
I like to piddle with making things and new lakes and fishing tournament. I don't know. I have aspirations of even winning the Classic. It's probably not a real reality at this point because I'm probably kind of a little bit over the hill for that. But I want to do it.
Right. But you're on the. I mean, you're on the path.
Yeah.
You're actually in the game. You're competing.
Yeah. And so I have a lot of expectations. Every single day, I'm thinking all the expectations for tomorrow. And I'm thinking about all these great things, and I have a whole list of projects every day.
Yeah. What did it take? What did it take in terms of discipline, or just maybe it's I'm sure there's a lot of discipline, because I know and I've talked to other people that have television shows about this, and I know we've only been on the air for 15 years. And getting it started is one thing. Maintaining it, keeping it going is another, which takes there's some discouraging times. There's some times when it looks like things are not going the way that they should, and then there's some really good times. But in order to keep it going, there's discipline. There's just having a hard-nosed attitude that it's going to work and you're going to make it work. What do you think as far as your career goes in 47 years of television?
43 years.
43 years.
Yeah.
So, but there's got to be some times where it looked really good, it looked really dark. What is it? Discipline and focus that keeps it going?
For the last 5 or 6 years, when I talk to Walt, my marketing director, I'll say, "What did NBC Sports say? Do we have a contract for next year?" They said, "Sure, you got a contract." I said, "Good, I got another year." It's like, I never know. I never know. I mean, I'm a pretty old guy. I mean, I don't know that they're going to want me for next year, but sure enough, they do.
Yeah.
They love my show, and I have a great rapport with them, and they give me another contract. But I'm grateful for every year that I get one, because I know it could end tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know that at my age and the way television is, and it's a little bit of a shrinking market, it'd be easy not to have a television show. It would be easy for it to go away. Now, I've also got some aces in the hole with Johnny Morris's deal, and I have some backup stuff I could do with him. So there's other things I could do. I don't know that I'd be totally out of television.
Yeah.
But I might lose, but I could possibly lose my television show. But I don't, at this point, everybody said, "Hey, it's great.
Yeah.
Let's go."
I mean,
Let's go.
It's the evolution of the market, and it's not that people aren't watching television. They're watching more than they ever have.
Well, Tom, I think the biggest thing that's helping me out now, and it's helping my son out, is YouTube. I only have 10,000 subscribers. I've only been in it a year, and so a lot of guys have. Kevin Van Dam, I think, has 40,000, and Iaconelli has maybe 35,000. So some of the guys are ahead of me, but I'll catch up to them.
Yeah,
it's just going to take some time.
Scott
Scott has set a record. He has got 340,000 subscribers.
Yeah, he's
making a lot of money doing it too.
Yeah.
They actually pay him. So that is the biggest thing on the horizon right now. And when I get my contracts with Bass Pro Shop, and when I talk to my people at Favorite Rods, and when I talk to my people in all the different advertisers I have, one of the things they say about the contract is social media. How's your social media doing? How are your numbers doing? I said, well, I got 42,000 people on FishBrain. So I've just posted one this morning. I got 10,000 just on this new little deal with the YouTube channel. That's starting off. That's 50,000. And then I got about that many with Facebook and the Instagram. So, I mean, I got like 100,000, it's not real big. It's not as big as Scott's, but it's something.
Yeah, but
that's growing.
It's really interesting to see you at, in your 70s embracing this new thing. And it's kind of like
it's mandatory.
Probably where television was when you first got started.
When John Acosta and the guys from Bass Pro said, you will do better.
Oh yeah,
I mean they're saying if I don't, it's curtains.
Yeah.
I mean they're saying I got to do it. I mean I got to improve, I am improving.
Certainly, you're seeing contemporaries not embracing it.
Right,
like it's not important to them, and then they just fade away.
So social media is a big deal, particularly in this case. My big push will be coming this next year into what is that one I'm thinking about?
YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah, the YouTube channels. Yeah.
And will you do something? Is your vision of that to do something similar to Scott, like reality kind of?
Yeah, he does a lot, and I do a lot with him. I probably do, I don't know, I just did one with him last week. We were up in Minnesota, and I did a deal up there with him. I did another one, well, actually, it was a funny show. We Jimmy Houston was with Ron Lindner, and as a partner, and I was with Scott, and we were on a small little lake, undisclosed lake near Brainerd, Minnesota, and we were doing a Scott Martin challenge, and that will be a part of a YouTube as well. But it's also one of Scott's television shows.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was just last week.
Do you spend a lot of time with Scott?
Not as much as I could, but yeah, I do. And we get together once a month, maybe doing something. I don't know exactly what. Yeah.
When he was coming up, and you're seeing that he's obviously moving towards the fishing. Was that something that you were supportive of?
Oh yeah,
in the beginning?
He had the abilities in high school. He wanted to get a new car with good stereo. So I said, well, go out and catch shiners and sell shiners.
Yeah,
or guide. And he did all that. So he's been a kind of a professional fisherman ever since a teenager.
Yeah, certainly
helping with the marina work and guiding and catching shiners and bait, and then finally with the tournament trail. So,
yeah.
Yeah. I told him early on, though, when he was going to school, and he struggled with school much like I did, I said, Scott, learn how to communicate. Have halfway decent, diction, and have halfway decent English, and be able to talk to all different people, older people, young people, be able to communicate. I said, that's the biggest thing you can do in life.
Yes, it is.
It's learning a communication skill.
And how did you encourage him to learn those skills?
Just, I guess, by example, and I kept hammering it. Because I was wondering, correct his English.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if you were gonna suggest being a fishing guide, because I feel honored that was my career, being a fishing guide, because it taught me more about the things that are really important in life than school ever did. And I struggled in school too. I mean, really struggled in school. But I was very fortunate that my parents sent me to a very good high school, and they didn't allow you to mess around much. Then when I went to college, there was nobody looking, and you could do whatever you want. And what I wanted to do wasn't going to school, right? It was about everything else. But my high school education was really good, and so good that I look at that as really a secret to any of the success that I've had really comes from my high school education, not my college education. So I wanted to send my kids to the same school, and their experience was the same, although they're all three of my kids are way smarter than I am and did way better in school. But I got into the fishing guide business, and it was clear from right away that, first of all, I did learn how to speak publicly at this high school, and I wasn't asked to do it in college much, but it was an important part. You had to stand up in front of the class, and you had to present your ideas, and you had to be presented with failure in a public forum. So you're not, after you do that many times, you're not afraid to get up there and say something stupid, because you've done it 100 times. Everybody has, so it's not a big deal. Nobody can be right all of the time. But as a fishing guide, especially a young fishing guide, a 20-year-old person, the people that you're guiding are CEOs of giant companies. They are people that have made a lot of money, and now they have a lot of time. They're very powerful people. And if you can communicate with those people, you can do very well as a fishing guide. But just being a fishing guide and having those people there, your communication skills are going to get better and better and better.
One of the biggest things I saw as a failure was we'd have guide meetings at my marina, say 20 years ago, in the 80s and 90s, and I'd help with the guide meetings, and we'd kind of try to refine our guide practices. And one of the guys I had was named John. I can't remember his last name, but anyway, he worked for a big battery company one time. But he was a PR guy. And people would come down in the morning, he'd offer them coffee, and he'd ask them first thing, "What's the biggest bass you've ever caught?" And the guys would say, "Oh, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've caught a 5-pound 3-ounce bass. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to try to catch a 5-pound 4-ounce bass. We're going to catch the biggest fish of the world, of your life and your career." Well, then we had other guides that would just kind of think that was kind of stupid, and the guy would go out and catch a great big trophy 8-pound bass, and they say something stupid. Well, we caught a bigger one yesterday, So those kind of guys never got the tips.
Yeah,
but John would always get a big tip. He caught fewer fish than some of them, but he just worked with the clients so well. He got tips every single day. He just never got anything less than a $20 to $100 tip every single day that he ever took anybody out.
When they came back, they probably asked for him.
Absolutely. And so John's whole format was just keeping people happy and talking to them in the right way and trying to have them catch their personal best and making a big deal, taking pictures of every single fish and just making everything just really special. And that was such a deal with the guide clientele because it's so easy to treat guiding as, well, gosh, we've done good all week and we've caught a couple hundred, fish and, brag about all the stuff that happened. I had to tell the guides another thing when they come in the evening, how guide parties want to talk together. Don't let your guide parties, or don't brag about your fish to the other guides, because what happens is all of a sudden your party, and you maybe caught a lot of fish, and you talk to my guide party, we didn't catch but half as many fish. All of a sudden, you're making me look bad, and that really hurts the tipping and everything else. So we try to keep the guides from bragging about what they caught to the other people that are there around on the dock.
Yeah, that was a lesson that I learned early on. I learned how to be in the guiding business from Vern and Joe Bressler, and Vern Bressler was an old cowboy. He was very good at guiding, and he understood it. He understood that it's a hospitality game. It's a relationship game, all the way down to the what you wear when you show up. And we were out in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, and he was like, "Listen, when you show up, you're going to look like a cowboy. I don't care if you're from Tennessee. I don't care if you're not a cowboy. They come out here, they expect a cowboy. You're going to dress up like a cowboy." And I was like, "Yes, sir. Understood." So we were cowboys. And then when you got to the river, you could take your blue jeans off and there'd be shorts and sandals and all that. But he didn't want you showing up looking like a hippie. He wanted you showing up looking like a cowboy. Buttoned up, tight, everything. Yeah. You look like you're going to the rodeo instead of looking like you're going fishing. And he just knew that this was what people expected. Mm-hmm. And we were going to fulfill their expectations. And one of the things that he was very clear about, he's like, when you come into camp, because we used to do a lot of overnight trips, he said, when you come into camp, you don't talk about how many fish you caught. You don't talk about the big one you caught. You don't talk about any of that. When you come in, you say, "Did everybody have a nice day?" And then you listen to their stories, but you don't tell yours, because all of a sudden, this person caught 4 fish. Your boat caught 80 fish. They worked really hard for those 4 fish. Right. They had to learn how to cast all morning. It seemed impossible for a long time. And then they have this massive success, and they catch 1. And they're super happy, and they stop and they eat lunch. And then they have a massive success, and they catch 2 more. And then before they come into camp, they have another success where it didn't look like it was going to happen. They catch 1 more, and that's 4 to round out the most perfect day they've ever spent in the outdoors.
That's what John McClain would say.
Yeah. And then you come in and start running your big mouth.
Caught 80 fish.
And you caught 80 fish. And all of a sudden, their day is not as good as it was.
That's true.
And I just learned so much like that. And then you can apply that to life in general. Like, don't mess with people's expectations. Like, why do you need to do that? And just let them tell you the good story that they had, and everybody has a good day.
It's so easy, and people talking about fishing, they'll say, "Well, what'd you catch today?" And so many people try to do an upsmanship. That I caught a 5-pound bass. Well, I caught 1 5-pound 1 ounce. It's almost almost that bad.
Well, you gotta know. Like you're a very accomplished fisherman. You know the trick. You let the other guy tell you first.
Right.
Oh, 43 inches? Oh, man, we just got you 44. Sorry.
But that is a problem. And I know there's a lot of people that play that game.
Yeah. But so do you still have a part of that marina now with the guiding operation?
No, but I actually guide a little bit on my own. Yeah. And have a little bit of a premium
so
price.
So somebody could go fishing with you?
Absolutely. It's a little bit more expensive than a normal guide party, but what I try to do, and I usually have autographed books and autographed pictures, and I tell plenty of stories, and I make it a really special day. Sometimes I really do some special trips.
Yeah.
Like, go for 2 or 3 days, really make a big deal out of it. And I also, believe it or not, have 3 places to go now this year that are as good as I've ever fished. One's a private lake. Another's a kind of a secret place in the Everglades. Another's another place way up in the Stick Marsh areas.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are kind of really off the wall little places, but boy, they're good fishing.
And so if somebody decided they wanted to do that, I mean, you've been on television for so long. I mean, a lot of this would be a lifetime dream for a lot of fishermen.
I do
and you understand that
once a month or a couple times a month.
So what would that trip look like? They would meet you and you would give them all these books and.
I don't know. A normal guide trip probably costs about $400 or $500. I usually charge like $1,000. Okay, that's not unreasonable.
No.
And then I usually take them somewhere special, and we stay. Often it's not around Naples. Often it's way upstate, or sometimes Okeechobee. Yeah, Okeechobee can be good. So I really have 4 or 5 places that are just really outstanding. But like the Okeechobee, I just don't take people to Okeechobee because it's not always the perfect place to go. But maybe it is 5 or 6 times a year it's the perfect place to go. And when it's really right, I have my contacts and, hey, we'll go to Okeechobee. I'll get you a big one.
Yeah.
And I used to guarantee at one point big fish. I don't really guarantee it anymore, but I did.
Yeah. When you were guaranteeing big fish, would that be on lures or bait or what? Or would it matter?
Well, both. I kind of quit doing that. I used to have a double or nothing kind of guarantee. But
really?
Years ago, but I kind of quit that.
Yeah, you might be the exception to the rule. I've always had this opinion that guaranteed fish was not good. It was not good for the industry.
It's tough.
Well, reason I'll tell you my reason. You're obviously an exception, but I always thought there were people in the Florida Keys that used to guarantee fish. Guarantee fish? Like, seriously? Like, you're going to, first of all, you're going to lose a lot of money. But then what I realized is they're just guaranteeing you that you catch a fish. Okay? So I can guarantee somebody that they're going to catch a fish any day of the year. It might be a snapper. It might be a Jack Crevalle. And so I'm thinking, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to cover yourself by spending some of the most productive time making sure that these people catch a species of fish that they didn't want to begin with. So now you book a tarpon trip, but you're snapper fishing. So I always kind of thought that's not really a good thing. Right. But when you're guaranteed fish, that could be different. A few
times I guaranteed I'd have at Santee Cooper when I had such a good guide operation there were a lot of 8-pound bass around. That's really a benchmark for a big fish. And so the spawning season would be on, and I'd have dozens of bass on beds, and I'd guarantee it double or nothing. I'd say, I guarantee a double or nothing the guide trip. I can catch you an 8-pound bass. And a couple times I didn't. A couple times it didn't work.
Did they pay you anyway?
But more often than not, I was ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Because I only did it on days when I knew that I had 10 of them found. I mean, I had fish there. I mean, I knew that I could catch one.
Yeah. But so double or nothing. That's it. You come away with a good guide day. Guide day.
Right. Well, that was back when I wasn't in the premium that I am now. You know, I haven't done it recently. It's fun though. I enjoy the fishing part, and to get with I like more than one day. It's kind of tough to just come along with just a day and you meet them, and by the time you travel with, like some of the places I go are quite a ways away.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes us a half day to get there. We fish that evening, maybe fish all the next day, maybe fish the next morning and come back that day. So it's maybe a 3-day trip, but we've had enough time that we've hit a couple evenings and a couple mornings,
Yeah. So, and that's all freshwater.
I do some saltwater. I got a 28-foot Mako, so I do a little grouper fishing. And then I have the regular flats boats. I have an old Aquasport that I rebuilt. Yeah. Oh, you ought to see that thing. In 1967, Aquasport.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I got to show you pictures. I'll show you on the thing. You wouldn't recognize it. I've cut it down a flat level boat.
Yeah.
It's a deck boat now.
Oh, really?
A deck Aquasport. And I got a big power lift on there with a 150 four-stroke.
Yeah.
Big tower.
Oh,
it's
cool.
It's wild.
That's cool.
It's the most wild
is that like a boat that you're spending a lot of time in? Or kind of special days?
I'd take some guide trips down in the Chokoloskee, and I'd look for snook and redfish, on the flats down there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool as a tower boat.
Yeah.
So Charlotte Harbor, things like that.
These days, do you like bass fishing better or saltwater fishing?
I enjoy saltwater fishing so much, but we've had hurricane problems, we've had red tide problems, we've had a lot of problems in saltwater that I haven't had in freshwater.
Yeah.
And my freshwater has been more consistent this year, in the last couple of years, actually, with the red tide issue we had this year and the hurricane issue we had last year. The freshwater has been way better.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And you're in an area now, the Naples area,
Yeah.
where you're spending a lot of time, where you're probably seeing considerable effects of the water issue.
This is the worst red tide we've ever had this year that I've ever seen. I've been there 25, 30 years. I've never seen one this bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like on the grouper deal, we've had to go out. Our normal run to get the groupers now are 70-mile runs.
Wow.
We're running 70 miles.
And you're doing that in a 28-foot boat or 24-foot boat?
When I have other people that I fish with,
okay.
Too. So this one guy, George McLaughlin, has this really nice 4-engine setup with one of those sea tender gyroscope things.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. And we just rock and roll. We go out there 70, 80 miles, and we catch pretty good fish. But that's a long run.
Yeah.
Tough run.
Yeah, when you get out 70 miles off of Naples, you're in really deep water. I mean, I know people are catching tuna out there, and
actually,
going
70,
going
straight out 70, we're still only 120, 40 feet deep.
Some of those guys just to the north of you there are taking their 4-engine setup, and they're going way out.
They're going out to the deep water. Yeah, we're not.
Incredible fishing out there
right.
that nobody goes.
Right. There are some really good fish out there. And you know what I want to start working with, and I know you've probably worked with it, is Pulleys Ridge and all that. Have you fished Pulleys Ridge?
I've never been there.
Boy, that's some good stuff. It's 70, 80, 90, 100 miles out, but there's some really good fish out there. Mm-hmm. And then I like off of Tampa. There's some
really that's where these guys are going out of, I think, like that Tampa area, and they're going straight out a long way. I don't know what it's called out there, but they show me some pictures, and they're catching some massive fish. So if you were to, we look to the future, we've looked to the past, and right now, what is it that you're the most excited about at this time of the year, at this time of your life?
Well, as of last week, when I talked to Johnny Morris, and he trying to talk me into making this Major League Fishing debut again, coming out of retirement again for the third time. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that would be one thing. You should.
That would be good.
I think you should. I don't think that you can sit around. Like you mentioned, you're just cutting grass and making turkey calls.
No, I can't sit around. I mean, even if I didn't do that, I'd be busy making bowls and turkey calls and doing a lot of stuff, I tell you what I really enjoy doing is reloading and long-range shooting.
Oh.
And I have some big half-minute long-range 1,000-yard rifles.
Uh-huh.
I only have a 50-yard target in my backyard. I only get set up for 50 yards. But I get a chronograph, and I get all the speeds down, and I get all my reloads done. And then when I take it out to the Orange Grove, and I put up my 500-yard targets and stuff, then, I can get that in. But I have Smith & Bender scopes. I have Night Force scopes. I have big handmade rifles, and I got some big stuff.
Now, when you do that and you're working your way through that, are you just kind of working out those details on your own, or have you ever been to a school like those long-range
I haven't been to long-range school, but see, I ran rifle ranges and stuff in the military, and so I've had gunsmiths working custom rifles for 30 years, and so I've even done a little gunsmith work myself, and I have my own machine shop.
Yeah.
I have a good Bridgeport mill and some good lathes. I got some heavy-duty stuff. I can build stuff.
Yeah.
I've built the Minn Kota trolling motor propeller.
Yeah.
And, things like that. I had 23 years of royalties on that.
Really?
So I've done some inventing and patented several things. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but the long range shooting, I find that to be super interesting. I think that
I haven't been to the long range school, and I probably need to go.
Well, there's just
but
so
I do read
much.
about it. I read, there's a lot
so
to
much
that.
involved with the curvature of the earth and the humidity and the wind and every single thing.
And I study that, and I read a lot about it. And so,
Yeah.
there's so much to be had on the internet on that subject. You can spend weeks researching long-range shooting and all the stuff about shooting in general, reloading. And stuff like
all
that.
of it. Fishing, hunting, turkey hunting, turkey calling,
it's
making
fantastic.
turkey calls. That's really what has been the biggest changes in our lives, and we're from two different generations. But, man, the internet has really changed everything.
I'm an expert. Now I can become a long-range expert because of the internet.
Right.
But I have the background anyhow.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of that.
Yeah, but still, ammunition changes. The guns are changing.
Yeah,
everything's changing, and you have to apply the new ideas and the new theories to it. But just like you're doing on your YouTube channel, I'm sure there's a lot of teaching and stuff like that. And it allows people that can't get out there with you to benefit from your knowledge.
I've even made YouTubes on reloading and some shooting.
I think that would be the most interesting thing about if I were to be looking for your YouTube channel. And I think that's what people are very interested in is that yes, you are a very accomplished fisherman and they know your name from fishing, but you have this whole other part of your personality that you happen to be very good at as well.
Well, I'm not, the periphery of like turkey hunting. I'm a life member of the Wild Turkey Federation, and I've killed hundreds of turkeys. So I've done all the Grand Slam stuff, and pistol, rifle, shotgun, everything like that. And I've done a lot of black powder stuff. So I'm not the expert in that field that I am in fishing, but I'm still pretty accomplished.
Yeah. But also it also puts you in a different place of learning, and you're learning, you're kind of giving out your knowledge in a different way. From over here in the fishing world, you're giving out this knowledge from being a guide, from winning tournaments, from doing this for a long, long time. Over here, this is an interest that maybe, you're shooting and everything, that you were in the military and you have all this experience, but maybe you got away from it for a while and you're getting back to it and you're learning all these new things. And then that's a very interesting way for knowledge to be transferred from people.
I'm looking forward to next month.
Yeah.
I've gone to the eye doctors and I've had some cataract surgery and I've had some lens work done, but my sight used to be 2015.
Yeah.
Really good at spotting fish. I'm really good at long range shooting. I'm really good at stuff. But then with age and neglect, my eyes have gotten to 20/25, 20/35. It's gotten worse.
Are you wearing contacts now?
No.
So you don't have glasses at all or contacts?
But I got 20/25, 20/30 vision. So
it's incredible.
But next month,
I'm
getting all sorts of new LASIK.
Really?
I'm doing. He guarantees me 20/20 in this eye, and he guarantees me probably 20/25 in that eye.
Wow,
that's decent.
That's incredible. So when you turned 40, did you get glasses?
Yes. Well, yeah. Everybody.
I didn't.
These are prescription.
Oh, okay.
But then I have reading glasses too.
But you're still. Still though, a lot of people's eyes go.
Oh, they do
much quicker.
Yeah, they do.
And I've made it to 50 without needing glasses. But we've gone through this whole thing with my son's eyes. He had this issue called keratoconus, and it would kind of make your cornea kind of cone shaped rather than it looked like the end of a football rather than the end of a basketball. Man, we just went through all of this stuff, and we found this doctor that could do this procedure with B vitamins in the eye, like an eye drop, and then hit it with blue light. And then it strengthens the eye, just like you would know this from making stuff, epoxies that you hit with a blue light, and they turn hard, really, and they're super strong. But before, if you don't hit them with that particular blue light, it's just goopy mess. Well, when he hits the light, when he puts this vitamin B drop in there with all kinds of stuff, and then when he hits the eye with 30 minutes of blue light, it strengthens the fibers of the eyeball so much that the disease doesn't affect it anymore. It's done. And the only alternative to that before was a cornea transplant.
Okay.
And just always say thank God for smart people, because this doctor is so incredibly smart. His name's Dr. Boxer Walkler from California, and I took my son out there, and he went from 2,600 vision to 2015.
Oh, golly day, that's
unbelievable,
amazing. 2,600, that's almost blind.
That's the internet, too.
2,600,
I found,
barely see anything.
Yeah, I know. And I found all of these doctors and these resources on the internet.
2015.
Yeah, and now he's an elk. That's the one that's an elk guy killing elk out in Montana.
Wow? That's crazy.
It's just amazing, and we're just so fortunate to have that. But I know we got to wrap this up, because I know you got places to go.
I got to drive to Georgia.
But I can't thank you enough for going out of your way to come and spend some time with me and be on this show. And it's a real honor. You know, I'd like to just like I told Bill Dance, I'd like to honor you and thank you for laying the foundation for people like me to follow behind. And you guys hacked your way through the jungle, and we have a nice
fun.
paved road.
It was fun.
It was
fun getting things started. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job, and you're still doing a great job, and you're a fun guy to talk to. You got a lot of good stories. So this won't be the last time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roland. That was Roland Martin, and what a great interview that was. Thank you, Roland, for coming down and going way out of your way to do that. One thing we didn't cover in that interview was how you can follow Roland Martin. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's Roland Martin Fishing _official. And if you didn't know, Roland and I spell our names differently. My name is Rowland, and he spells his name RolandMartin Fishing _official. He also has a YouTube channel that he's being more and more active on, as we talked about in the interview, and he is on an app called FishBrain, doing a lot of posts there. Thanks so much for the emails. You can email podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. I will get that email and I will read it. And thank you so much for the suggestions. Roland Martin has been suggested by a lot of people, as have so many of our other guests. And if you suggest it, I will try to track them down. So thank you so much for your suggestions and for your emails with encouraging words. I really appreciate it. If you could, take a second, go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. That does a lot for us. And until next week, I'll see you on the water.